welcome to another video. Today we're going to be covering the Icejade Tearlaments Deck Profile for April 2023, Season 16 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And if you like this type of video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And we have more quality content on the way. We obviously have some new cards which will be coming soon, which will may or may not change the impact of the deck. But I think Icejade as a whole plus Tearlaments does have a bit of synergy, and I think it is quite nice that we get to play this type of deck, because I think it's a new variant which most people are not even aware about, because obviously there's branded Tearlaments, there's Shadow Tearlaments, there is Mech Knight Tearlaments. I saw there's a lot of variants out there, but I think people are not worried about this one. But this one actually has, oddly enough, a quite unique synergy. So hopefully I'll explain it very quickly. Just a very rough guide, nothing too detailed. This is the deck list part of the video. There will be replays which will be done on Master Duel, because for this one you need to actually see what it's like to counter the meta and how it plays against certain opponents. So using Edo Pro will not make sense. Just to explain what kind of combos you could go to, I think I'll just explain the combos as you'll see in the replays. So stay tuned for that, or you can go to the timestamp. I'll put it in the description, the timestamp, so you can go to specifically the replays. There will be live commentary as well as replays, so voiceovers, so you can pick and choose which one you want to listen to, but I think all the gameplay will be covered in that section. So without further ado, let us talk about the deck list quite quickly. So you'll see on the screen I have a 60 card build. Now you're thinking, well, can you play less? You can play less, but the problem is now, if you want to achieve the goal of the deck, you ideally need more cards on deck, because number one, you are in an anti-tier meta. So if you're playing Tearlaments and everyone else is playing anti-tier, you know there's going to be a lot of back row hate, especially against tier. There's going to be a lot of counter. So if you're just running Tearlaments only, then you're kind of falling short. Whereas in this deck, at least if your Tearlaments strategy falls away, your Icejade strategy comes in, and vice versa. So if your Icejade strategy goes away, most people don't expect you also have a Tearlaments play. So that's kind of like a difficulty for the opponent, because they have to decide, okay, how do I best out for both? Because obviously certain anti-tier, decks are built only for Tearlaments, but then Icejade, they're like, oh, okay, flip, I didn't think about this. So we can kind of play around multiple things, and I will show you gameplay that does play through these type of floodgates and disruptions in a way, so we can still deal with it. And it pretty much catches your opponent by surprise, because they don't expect, okay, you have two types of decks basically you have to deal with. So just very quickly, the core, I would say, is obviously what is available. So when I talk about Tearlaments per se, that is pretty much the core. So 3D Crow, very essential for any deck nowadays. It's a good disruption. It can stop fusions, it can stop key cards if need to be summoned or recovered from the grave or whatever. It's very useful. It discards any card, not just a monster, so it's quite nice. You can also run Ghost Spell if you want to, but yeah, I don't have Ghost Spell, so I'm running 3D Crow. But Ghost Spell is also nice, especially in the mirror match, so it also helps quite nicely to actually stop those effects from happening. Then obviously we have 2 Merly, because we only have 2, but of course if we could play 3, we could definitely play 3. We're also playing King of the Swamp. King of the Swamp is only at 1, and remember, we are abiding to the post-ban list, and I was playing this at 1 anyway, because I knew this card wasn't going to be played as much as soon as, obviously when the tiers get hit fully, then people will start playing King of the Swamp. But I think Konami knows preemptively there's going to be future cards coming that will basically fusion substitute any fusion monster for that particular fusion. So I guess it was smart on their end to limit King of the Swamp, but for us it doesn't really matter. We just have it just so that we can add Poly to hand, and that's pretty much it. If it's in the grave, it's in for fusions. We also have Beast King, so it's not a real stress at all. And this is a rare, so it's actually cheaper than King of the Swamp. We're running the Rainbow Bridge engine, which will search either our Pellerino or our Icejade Field Spell. So we obviously have to play 2 cards, which is Emerald Turtle as well as Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Now, The nice thing about this is it is an aqua, so even if you do mill it and you are having a fusion material to fuse with, you can use the Emerald Tortoise into the grave and fuse it back into the deck, and then you can activate Rainbow Bridge from there if need be. But it's also nice that it's an aqua, so it's pretty cool there. Then we also running a bit of Icejade, so definitely 3 Icejade Adrian. She's very good because she has 2 purposes, right? So when she's on summon, she'll add a Icejade spell or trap, so she can literally search our field spell by herself, or she can search for our Icejade Curse, which will be kind of a floodgate, and also with battle damage infliction dealing with our Icejade monsters. So it's kind of nice there. And also she has a second effect which is quite nice, because if she's targeted for a card effect or is it targeted for an attack, the next time this card will be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, it will not be destroyed. Also, special summon a water monster from your hand or graveyard. Now normally you would summon an Icejade monster or any water monster in general, but now in this case we're actually going to be summoning, most of the time if you have Reinhardt in hand, Reinhardt, because it's a water monster, so it actually can trigger your plays depending on when you summon it. But remember, the downside is it cannot be during the damage step, because the damage step nothing's going to happen, because all the fusion girls say if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect except during the damage step, then they're not going to fuse. So very important, you either do at the start of the battle phase or before they do the damage calculation, then you activate that effect. So be very careful when you activate the effect of Icejade Adrian going into Reinhardt. So it's very important there. So that's why I'm running through her, because she's actually quite flexible, because even in the graveyard you can also summon a Reinhardt and also go further into your place, which they don't expect most of the time. Then we have triple, well not triple, I wish you had triple. We have double Havnis. This is like a hand trap in a way. When your opponent activates a monster effect on field, and remember it must be a direct chain, so if their chain blocks something else, it's not going to work, and it must be on the field. So yeah, that's very important. You can special summon this card from the hand, and if you do, send top 3 cards of the deck to the grave. So it's pretty standard there. Then if this card is sent to the grave by card effect, you can also fusion summon as well. So all the girls have it. It's Merly, Havnis, and Sheeran, right? They all can do the same thing, but they each have unique effects on how they special summon themselves, or in case of Merly, doesn't special summon, but she does trigger when she's summoned, basically, right? They're running double Beast King, again, just to have more names in the grave, because sometimes you don't want to use your actual tier names. Like for example, your Reinhardt is used for fusion material, and even your Kakalos, so sometimes you want to use Beast King or King of the Swamp to replace them for your further plays, because sometimes you want to extend further, so you don't want to actually use all your materials at once. So it's good to have some flexibility there with that. They're running Nail Shadow Aerial. This is the only Shadow monster running in the deck. We're not running the trap card. I'll search for it now. It is the Shadow Schism. Now we're not running this. Now if we had this in the deck, if we had space, we would have been able to summon a water monster, which is a fusion, which is this one here. And this one requires a shadow monster and a water monster, which we'll probably have definitely in the grave. And this one basically says neither player can summon monsters from the hand or graveyard using spell or trap effects. So if your opponent is playing a deck that requires summoning monsters using spell and trap, so usually Runick special summons monsters using card spell or trap effects, it's not going to work. So that's pretty interesting there. So if you do run Shadow, it's a nice monster to have, but unfortunately I don't have space, so I only run her for her graveyard effect, where if she's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard and banish them. So if for some reason in the mirror match, or if you've been milled, then they trigger this card, he literally sends 3 targets to their grave to banish. So if they want to fusion, you can just banish it permanently. It's even better than the shuffler. The only way they can stop this is if they actually chain Ghost Spell, because Ghost Spell will say negate a card that will banish a card from the graveyard. So that's the only way. Then we run Icejade Tearlaments. Now she's kind of here for sometimes an extension, sometimes a starter, but normally she's good for the graveyard effect, where if a water monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, so it's not just by your opponent, even by yourself, you can banish from grave and summon an Icejade monster from your grave. So again, it's a nice recursion, because you can either get your Adrian back, your Cosmic Core, any of your Icejade monsters back, and continue your plays from there. So it's kind of nice to have. And it's a level 4, so it's good for your Abyss Dweller plays and so on and so forth, and also your level 4s. So we're also playing Tearlaments Sheeran. And now Shirin is the almost like the extender in a way. She can also be a starter as well. We're doing a main phase. You can special summon the card per hand for free, no cost. The only cost will be you have to send a monster from your hand to the graveyard. So usually you are sending either a Tearlament Girl or you're sending one of your Ishizu cards, which is either a Shuffler or a Miller. So that is what her effect is. And then obviously her unique effect, if you send to the graveyard by card effect, she'll fuse from the grave. So that is standard, right? Again, also from the damage step. So damage step doesn't apply to all the girls. So if anything happens in the damage step and you want to trigger effects with them, they're not going to activate. So be very careful of that. Then we're playing obviously the best starter, apart from Adrian. For Tearlament, this is Tearlament Reinhardt. This is part of the Visa Starfrost lore. So this is the alternative version of Visa Starfrost. So he's more corrupted and so on. So this is the Reinhardt version. This is the water version. He's pretty cool. If he's normal special summon, you can send a Tearlament monster from deck to grave to basically start your fusion plays. And if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon itself, but then you must have a Tearlament card in your hand to send to the graveyard. So it can be a trap, it can be a spell. They do have spells and a monster. So you must have a Tearlament card in the grave. Otherwise, you cannot summon it from the grave to summon. So that's very important there, but it's brilliant. Now with this one here, there's Numia placeholder. So for Reinhardt, if you don't have Reinhardt, let's say, you can also run, I'll search it now, you can also run Supreme Seamare. Yeah, so you can run Supreme Seamare. So she's also doing the same exercise, because when she's summoned, basically you can send one aqua monster from your deck to the grave. So the nice thing about the Tearlaments, except for Reinhardt, they are all aqua monsters, and the main deck monsters, that is. So if you don't have Reinhardt, just remember your ratios will be very important here. So the more Reinhardts you have, the less Seamares you're going to run. So let's say if you're running 3 copies of Reinhardt, you're obviously going to have no Seamare. If you have 2 copies of Reinhardt, 1 Seamare, and vice versa. So if you don't have any Reinhardt, then you run 3 Seamare. So you have flexibility on that front. So just be mindful of that. But obviously, if you could make Reinhardt even just one will be enough. But then obviously, because she's an SR, it's a bit cheaper, but it's a lesser version of Rhino, because it's not an archetype card, so you don't get like a benefit apart from just sending an awkward from deck to grave. So that's it. Then you're running the Ishizu cards. Now I have 1 Kaldo, 3 Medora, 1 Kelbeck, and 2 Agido. Now you're probably thinking, now why are the ratios like that? Well, remember, I do not spend money on the game. Only thing that I spend is the gems, and I grind for everything that I've earned. So everything you see in this pack, basically, it's either coming from bundles, free cards, or I spend from gems, or from crafting. So these are the cards that I was able to pull, and I felt like I don't need to craft anymore, because you don't want to have too many millers at the same time. You don't have too many shufflers. So I think you're trying to balance the two. So for me, I think Medora at 3 is nice, because Medora can actually place my Gravekeeper's Trap directly into the field zone. So that's why I like to play more of that. And then obviously Kaldo's good, but Kaldo only discards and then searches for a monster that mentions Extended the Spirit, and that's it. So it's not really useful apart from shuffling cards from the graveyard. Then Agido and Kelbeck gain effects when Exchange of the Spirits in the graveyard. So if you have Exchange of the Spirit, you can either set a trap from your graveyard to your field, or you can send more cards from your opponent or from your own deck to your grave. So basically milling 10 essentially with Agido, which is ridiculous, right? So you can pick and choose for your deck, but for me this is my ratio, so I feel like it works just fine. If I do get to the higher tier, and let's say I'm in Diamond, let's say, then I probably will take out the Agidos, and I'll probably just keep the 3 Medora and 1 Kaldo, and then probably put in other stuff in just to back up, because you don't want to be obviously milling your opponent as well, because if they're also playing Tearlament, they're also going to be triggering their stuff. So although yes, I have Exchange of the Spirit and Gravekeeper's Trap, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be immune to everything. So even with the Best Dweller and all that, they can still have a way to out it. So you don't want to give them any chance in the game. So yeah, that's going to be quite crucial there. They're running 2 copies of Icejade Tearlaments. Again, she can be a nice extender. summon any water monster from hand. So let's say for some reason they stop your Adrian for some reason, and you have Tremor in hand plus a Rhinoheart, then you can summon Rhinoheart and then further extend from there. So she's nice. And she can revive any of your Icejades when she's banished. If there's a water monster destroyed by battle card effect, which is nice. Then we're of course playing the one Kaiju because we know Kaijus are kind of broken, so you just tribute a problem monster and they go with that. Now running Icejade Creation Kingfisher. Now you're probably thinking, why are you running this monster in this deck? Well, it's actually quite useful in a way because at most times you're going to have a water monster on field. So we have quite a few water monsters in the deck and also in the extra deck as well. So the nice thing is you can target a water monster you control, equip it to the hand or field. So hand or field. And it's not once per turn, that one. So if you have multiple, obviously depending on your spell and trap zone. So if you have free space, you can open up those spots. Then the unique effect, if you equip an Icejade monster, it can basically become a super heavy samurai, which can attack and defense, which is ridiculous, right? So if you look at all these 1500, Adrian's got 2000, Cosmoco's got 3000, that's ridiculous, right? And if your monsters lose attack also when Cosmoco's attacking, they basically are nullified, basically. The only downside is they don't get piercing damage, but I mean, attacking and defense is kind of nice. So if you know Super Heavy Samurais, they are known for big defense and they attack with that defense, so it's quite nice to have. So, and also while this card's equipped to a monster, you can target one monster your opponent controls with attack less than equal to the equipped monster's defense. Special summon this card and then you can return that monster to the hand, so it's a free bounce and you can re-equip it again, which is insane. So that's why you only want one. Then obviously running 2 copies of Icejade Cosmocore. Now why running 2? Because normally we'll have one for fusion and we have one to play on the field. Because when there's a face-up card in the field zone, so either Pellerino or the Icejade Sea Note Inyon Cradle, then we can basically special summon from the hand for free, which is nice. And she's basically also a Floodgate, where basically monsters your opponent controls can activate the effects the turn they are summoned. So after that, they cannot summon again. So let's say on turn 1, they activate all the effects and they're good. You have this field spell and also you have Icejade Cosmocore. If you summon Cosmocore on field, on your turn, they cannot activate any of the effects. So you can basically pop off with no interruption at all. The only monster that they will be having interruptions will be the monster that they summon that turn. But the monster summoned in turn 1, they're not going to activate again. So that's kind of insane there. So it's an instant. It's not even an effect. It doesn't activate. It's just an inherent summon. So it's pretty nice. And that's pretty much the monsters we're running. Then we're running some spells. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster for some back row. Because one thing about Tearlaments, if you see most of the decks that you'll see competitively, they don't have a lot of back row removal. So because they want to maximize their resources, they want to have many monsters as possible, which is fine. But at the same time, you also want to be conservative because you don't know who you're going to be playing, especially going to be playing against anti-tier decks. They're going to be having a lot of spell and traps, you know, Defission, Macrocosmos, you know, a lot of stuff. So sometimes you need to have some back row hate to kind of deal with that. So apart from Crime, which is an Omni Negate, this is only once per turn, so you can't activate another one. Whereas if you have Feather Duster, maybe a Lightning Storm, even you matched, you can activate it multiple times if it did negate the first one, for example. So that's nice. Running 2 Super Poly because you want to also have further extension. Let's say for some reason you have Super Poly, or you have Poly, but you don't have, let's say, a Tearlament, but you can actually fuse. We can fuse into some monsters in extra deck, which are quite useful there to also start your plays as well, which is also because anyone's useful for a fusion will trigger the effect, so it's quite nice. Then running 1 Foolish Bearer of Goods again. Foolish Bearer of Goods, you would have seen it was announced that it's going to be limited as well. I think again it's just to reduce the consistency of Tearlament because they're actually using it to actually search, you know, either a monster, search a trap. So it was quite a recursion, you know. They can send pretty much anything and that spell or trap will basically recover whatever they need. So I think it was just way too consistent. But yeah, I still feel like it's a bad hit, but I understand why, because they don't want to make Tearlament too broken in the sense, okay, it's like extremely consistent because there's not only Rhinoheart and Shirin that are starters, because if you don't have them, you can just, send your Select and then Select will add your monster. Or you can send your Scream and then Scream will add a trap. You know, you can send whatever you need face of one, or you can even send the Rainbow Bridge and then also to get your field spell. You know, there's a lot of Tearlaments has many starters basically. So yeah, that's kind of the downside to that. All right. Then we're also running triple tactic talent. Now again, because we're going to be potentially playing mirror matches, people could be activating effects during the main phase. If they can play around the draw phase, that's fine, but main phase normally, then we can actually draw 2 cards, take control of their monster, or look at their opponent's hand and shuffle a card that they need into the deck. So that's kind of nice. Then we can, you know, extend our plays and then just go on further and hopefully try and win the game. Then 2 copies of Icejade Cradle just to search our Icejade monsters, also to bait Ash. Always nice to bait an Ash, and it's not once per turn. But remember, if you have multiple Icejades in your field or grave, you cannot add the same monster that's in your grave or in the field. So it has to be from a different name. So obviously, if you have no Icejades in your field, then you can search any Icejade multiple times. But if you have, let's say, Icejade Cosmical in the grave, you cannot search her again. You have to search a different name. So that's why we're running at least multiple Icejade names. So either run Azurin, or you're going to search for Tinola, you're going to search for Kingfisher, you're going to search for Jamora, whatever you need, and then you go from there. Then we're going to have 2 field spell, 2 C-Note Enyon Cradle, and 1 Pelarino, because Pelarino is obviously limited to 1, so it's pretty nice. This basically adds a Tearlaments monster to start your plays. It boosts your fusion monsters by 500, and also if a Tearlaments monster is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, you can target a card in the field and destroy it, and it can even target your own cards, which will also further extend your play. Which is what I see why this card is limited to 1. Because if we had 3, it would be so broken. Then we're also running Icejade C-Note Cradle, because the nice thing about this card is, even if they say they banish your Icejade monsters, you can recover it back. So let's say if you had Mirror Jet on field, they banish the Azurin. Let's say Azurin will still add the spell or trap. You activate the C-Note Enyon Cradle, recover your Icejade Azurin, or any Icejade that is banished or in your graveyard. So it's kind of nice. So it's also good to have. And also, it can also reduce your monster's attack for every for when you target a water monster you control. That monster and all the face-up monsters your opponent controls lose attack equal to its current original attack. So be careful. Not its attack when it's on the field, its original attack. So normally, you're gonna summon your Cosmical. You're gonna obviously be in defense. You're gonna reduce its attack by 1500. And you're going to lose all your monsters on their fields, and you're going to lose 1500. So that's kind of weak. So it's almost like how Scream is, where if you summon any monster while Tearlaments on the field, it mills 3, and it's permanently losing 500. So the only downside is with this one is obviously when the monster's currently on the field, but 1500 attack being lost, and if she attacks, you lose a further 1000 damage. So sometimes you can even go to 0, which is insane, right? And also, it also triggers another way to summon another monster, which we'll talk about later. So that's pretty much why we run 2 of this. So this is quite nice. It just recurs your Icejades, and yeah, normally it's the last player you'll go to. But yeah, it's nice to have. Then Icejade Curse is a synergy with the field spell, so it basically becomes a skill drain essentially. So whether they are summoned or after they're summoned, they cannot activate any effects. So that's pretty cool. And if an Icejade monster is involved in battle and is destroyed, whether you destroy it or you destroy their monster, target one of those destroyed monsters, inflict damage to the opponent equal to the monster's original attack. So that's kind of insane there. 1 Scream, because 1 Scream is, for me, that's all I could get. If you could run 3 Scream or 2 Scream, I would recommend it. But again, I'm trying to keep all cards that will work. Yeah, you can easily drop a Beast King and maybe add another Scream if you have. But again, this is just a early build, so it's not like the final optimal build. There are definitely better ways to play this deck. So I'm still learning it as I'm going. So even when new cards come out, it's also going to impact the way I play the deck as well. So it's pretty nice. In the grave, if it's sent to grave, you can add a trap, and it can mills 3 when you summon a monster while you control a Tearlaments monster around the field, and your monsters lose 500 attack on your opponent's side. And this is for monsters after they summon as well, which is kind of insane. 1 call buy, because, you know, call buy, things happen, you need to do something, right? Then we're playing Tearlaments Heartbeat. Now, you probably notice where's Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion, unfortunately, is going to get banned effective 30th of April. So come the next season, there's not going to be Instant Fusion. So you need to have some sort of replacement. So I just put another back row And again, it will kind of stop a play, because sometimes if I'm going second and I have nothing else and I have an open, let's say, Floodgate on the field, I can do Tearlaments Heartbeat and then send a card from my hand to the grave, and then I can trigger some plays. So that's an option. And sometimes it also baits out, you know, Omni-Gates and stuff like that. So Heartbeat is there. You can also replace it with something else, but that's the card that I chose to run in my build. But yeah, you can freely take it out. You can either run the Heartbeat, or you can run the Tearlaments Grief, which is basically a summon a monster and send it to grave. So it also can start to play like that, but that's what you can do there as well. Then running Exchange of the Spirit along with Gatekeeper's Trap, because Exchange of the Spirit basically triggers the effect of Gatekeeper's Trap, which says your opponent cannot activate the effects of cards in the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard. So any deck I run, I'll run it. If I can play Ishizu, I can run that combo. I'm not going to exclude it. It's impossible. Then double Evenly, because Evenly match again is broken in the game. Double Impermanence. Then Remedy of Salvation I spoke about. Meta Noise, not so much relevant now because you're not playing Kashtira. Kashtira is not out yet, but when Kashtira comes, people are going to be probably playing Meta Noise. Meta Noise basically says target a monster your opponent controls, change it to face down, and then send a Tearlaments monster from deck to grave. So that's pretty much why I'm playing this, because if I don't have Sulliek, I don't have Crime, and I've got Meta Noise, why not? I can grab it. So it's kind of nice there. And then one Crime. Now you can argue, okay, why don't I just replace the Meta Noise with Crime? I feel like Crime only comes up rarely, you know. It doesn't. When it does come up, it comes up, but you don't need more than one because you only activate one anyway, and you can also recur it as well. So it's quite nice. And also, by the way, Meta Noise also recovers a Tearlaments monster from graveyard. So in case you didn't fuse with that one, you can return to hand, and you can go on from there. This one's basically an Omni-Negate, but you must have a monster in your hand. Any monster, but you must have if you don't have a monster in your hand, rather not set this card because it's not going to be worthwhile for you. Then Sulliek, probably the best trap next to maybe Crime, because it's basically a infinite impermanence, but permanently, because it targets your effects monster your opponent controls, negate its effects forever, and then you can send a monster you control to the graveyard. So again, you can send any monster you want, and you can basically go from there, which is quite nice. Then to wrap up, we are playing Raigeki++, Trap, and that is how we're going on there with that. So just round out the extra deck. So Mood Dragon, I think it's quite cool. I mean, if you're playing Tearlaments, you must have Mood Dragon so that you can protect the monster from being targeted by certain effects, and also it's a good target for, you know, fusions if you run out of fusions for some reason. Because obviously it's two monsters with the same attribute but different types. So for example, Rhino Heart. Okay, Rhino Heart can't really go into anything, but let's say Rhino Heart and Adrian, because there are two attributes, water monsters, but they're different types. So if you have polymerization, you can go into Mood Dragon. Same with your fusion girls. If you have DD Crow in the grave, then you can go into Mood Dragon as well. So it's another option there. Then Kit Kalos, I mean, need I explain what Kit Kalos does? I mean, she has like 3 crazy effects, which is like broken. And the funny thing is with her is that when she's special summon, not even when fusion summon. So I think that's why she was actually broken, because if they made her fusion summon, it would have been a lot better. So if this card is special summon, you can take a Tearlaments card, either add it to grave, or either send it to grave or add it to your hand. So you can pretty much add anything you want or send anything you want depending on what you need. And also it can do a monster reborn, target itself, send it to grave, or target another monster you want. And then at the same time, if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you get to mill 5. So yeah, now I understand why it's limited to 1, because yeah, this single-handedly changed the game most of the time when I summon her out. Then Carcatus, again, there's a flex spot here in the deck, because after that, once I ran my core, I was like, okay, I'm running out of, I have extra space, what do I run? So I could run IP Masquerena, but I don't have Masquerena, but I do have Beast King of the Swamp and King of the Swamp plus a polymerization. So it basically is an Alistar Invoker and any water monster, which I'll definitely have. So if it comes up, it comes up. And also, this is, for those who know, this was a Duel Links card. Duel Links card, which is actually banned because this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, and you cannot target it with card effect. So it's like a Avramax in defense position, which is insane. And on top of that, it can attack while in defense. So yeah, it's Super Memory Samurai, but like it's just ridiculous protection. So yeah, broken. and surprisingly it's a rare. So yeah, but obviously in Duel Links the format's a bit different there, but in Master Duel, yeah, it's not as popular, but yeah, it's an option if I want to go in there, like in the grind game, let's say, because people don't expect it. Then Dragonmaid for reducing the monster's level to level 1. So if they want to do exceeds or anything like that, they can't, because they are permanently negated and they're going to be level 1. So it's nice. You go into Runick again, which is nice. All aqua monsters can be destroyed by battle, which is cool. And when you activate a card effect that will special summon a monster, you can negate it and then send a card from deck to grave. So sometimes you send yourself or a Tearlaments girl to trigger effect. Guardian Chimera, because we have polymerization, so why not? It's Guardian Chimera. Kalada Heart, also good. It basically is a Tearlaments Rhino Heart and 2 aqua monsters. You cannot use it as fusion material, but it kind of has a balance for it, because if it's special summoned, you can, or if aqua monster is sent to your graveyard by a card effect, you can target a card in the field, send it back to the deck. Pretty nice. And if you send this card by the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon this card again, and then send the Tearlaments card again. So it's almost like a Kikalos, but now it revives itself, and then you send a card to it, which is again nice for follow-up play and for further extension, which is great. Then running 1 God Slime. You could run 2 if you want to, but I think 1 is sufficient, because this card does so much. It kind of confuses your opponent a little bit if they know what they're doing, but if they don't, then it's crazy, because we can actually summon this card properly, 1 aqua monster plus Cosmic Core, which is level 10, or we can use Cosmic Core, reduce its attack to 0, and summon it that way. So there's 2 ways to summon her. We don't use the tribute effect, and the nice thing is it cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent's monsters cannot target for attacks and cannot be targeted by card effects except for God Slime. So God Slime is the only monster on the field that they can target for card effects and for attacks. So they pretty much have a problem if you have Kalos, let's say Kalada Heart, and other monsters on the field. They can't really touch those monsters. They have to worry about God Slime first. So that's kind of like the first line of defense, which is insane. And if it's 3,000 defense, and remember, if Icejade seen Enyo and Kratos on the field, right, and they summon a monster on the field, or you summon a monster, you can reduce God Slime's attack by 3,000, and they also lose 3,000. So that is insane, because now they can't go over your monster, because A, they won't have enough attack because they lost 3,000, and because God Slime cannot be destroyed by battle. That is going to be a problem for them, and yeah, we pretty much just win the game from there. So it's kind of insane. Abyss Dweller. I think Abyss Dweller, everyone knows what Abyss Dweller does. It's easy to level 4s. It has so much. If you have a water monster attached to it, gains 500, and it can basically shut down the opponent's grave for 2 turns. At least 1 turn at least. Baguska, in case we have no further plays, or we're playing, let's say, on the Floodgate deck first, then we need to obviously go defensive first, stall out the opponent, or if we literally have no plays, we summon Baguska 2 turns, or 3 turns actually, and then we go from there, right? Then Zeus, if you need to go into Zeus, you go into Zeus. Abyss Alacia, 2 fish, sea serpent, and or aqua monsters. So even if they're dark or water, they are aqua monsters. So you can still summon her, and they gain, the monsters she points to will gain 500 attack and defense. So it even further protects your monsters, because sometimes it gives them an additional boost. And if she's destroyed by battle or card effect by an opponent's card, she can send a water monster to grave. So either send your Icejades, or you can send a Rhino Heart, and then summon a water monster from grave in defense position, but does not negate the effects. So if you have a Rhino Heart, be careful, because that was probably in the damage step. If it wasn't the damage step, then you can send a Rhino Heart, summon a Rhino Heart if you already did. If you didn't, then you can send an Adrian, a Cosmic Core, whatever you need, then it's fine. But it's basically nice for further play there. And Adrian can also revive her if she is in the graveyard, so it's a recursion. They're running Dark, in case they have Dark monsters, which you know Dark monsters are very popular, so they'll have it. Then we have Sprite Elf for the Merly play, because Merly is a level 2, so we run Elf. And we have another flex spot here, which is Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. Now, it says 3 monsters with different names. So you're thinking, how do we summon this card? Well, sometimes if that's the best play you can do, then that is the best play you can do. So the key thing is we'll try and make sure we summon it with the level 7 or higher monsters material, which we will definitely have. And if it is, it basically comes to Abramax. Untargetable, indestructible, can only be destroyed by battle if you have enough attack. But the problem is if you attack first, you want it to obviously gain attack. So it becomes maybe 4,500, but even gain 6,000. And on top of that, you can also banish a card on the field if you want to, or you can make a second attack during the next battle phase. So it's a flex spot that you can choose for those. But then, now you're probably thinking, okay, now what about the other versions of this deck? Well, on Master Duel Meta, I have posted 3 different versions. I'll leave the links in the description below for the 40 card build, the 50 card build, and this build of course. And you can kind of take it from there and see how much it costs and see what you have, and also play around with what are the flex spots that you have. So you'll see in the 40 card one, I also included a bit of a side deck so you can see, okay, these are the cards that you can kind of exchange if you don't have. So there's stuff like Time Thief Redoer, there's Terraforming if you don't want to do the Rainbow Bridge Engine. You can run so many other cards, Masquerena, Abramax, if you have it. So there's a whole lot of options you can have here. So that's it for pretty much this section of the the video. We are going to get into the gameplays now, which I think there you'll kind of see how the deck kind of functions. And like I said, there will be timestamps for all of these, so if you just want to go to the games first, then come back here, you can definitely do that. But otherwise, you can go to a specific point in time. I'll label it, and other than that, let's get on to the game. It's going to be quite interesting, so let's check what happens. Okay, so this is pretty much the opponent's opening play. They set 4 and pass, but let's look at our hand and see what we have. So we have Gravekeeper's Trap, which is basically locking any graveyards. If Icejade is placed in the graveyard, it's pretty awesome. You can discard a card, add the Earth Fairy to the deck to the hand, or Gravekeeper, which you're not playing, but that's fine. We also have Impermanence for good spell trap negate. We also have Icejade Tearlaments for follow up, which is summon any water monster from hand, which can be Reinhardt or Icejade Adrian. And then we have Reinhardt obviously for setting a Tearlaments monster to the graveyard to start fusion summoning, and we also have Adrian to do our Icejade plays, adding a field spell or a Icejade Creator to search a monster. So we pretty much have a lot of routes we can go to, but I think the priority is do the Icejade plays first. If something happens to our Adrian, it does have an effect where it can summon a water monster from the hand or graveyard if it's targeted by a card effect or attacked. So we could definitely be summoning the Reinhardt. That would be the great play here. So let's see what we draw for turn, and we take it from there. So great. So we draw a Sulliek. Now Sulliek is pretty good, and it's broken that it's a rare, because if you control a Tearlaments monster or it's a Starfrost, we can target an effect monster that your opponent controls basically, and it negates the effect. So it doesn't get it for the end of the turn, it's a permanent negate. Then you can send a monster you control to the graveyard. So most of the time you'll be sending a Tearlaments monster to trigger a fusion. But we can actually send, depending on what the opponent's playing, you either send a Reinhardt or we could send a monster from our hand if we had another Tearlaments, but in this case we don't have. So let's just see what we're going to do. So I think for now, the safe bet would have been now to do is we're actually going to go the Icejade play first. And that's what I did here. I did the Icejade play first, which means we're going to add the field spell. He's going to summon Max C, activate Max C, that's fine, no problem. No worried about that. Max C is not really useful for us anyway because we don't really play it. Add field spell. We play the field spell, and now we try to go for battle. Now, opponent activates Dogmatic for punishment. Now it says target a face-up monster you put in controls. Send a monster with the equal higher attack from extra to the graveyard if you do destroy that monster. Now, this is interesting because it triggers Adrian's effect. Now, Adrian's effect says when it's targeted for an attack or a card effect, you can actually quick effect. You can special summon a water monster from hand, and also the next time this card will be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, it is not. So basically, it protects itself and summons a free body on field, which is pretty nice. So the best play here is not to summon tomorrow, but to summon Reinhardt. So we're actually going to do that play right now. Trigger the effect, and we're going to go ahead and summon our Tearlaments Reinhardt, which is now going to trigger our Tearlaments plays. So he draws a card off that, that's fine. He sends the Intis. Reinhardt will send a Tearlaments monster from the grave. We're going to chain block, and then Intis is going to pop the field spell, which is actually not relevant because we can just get another one. And he also chains Heavenly Prison, and also he chains There Can Only Be One. So I want you to take note of this. So we're basically playing under a sort of floodgate, and remember, it's not really a floodgate because we actually don't really worry about this too much because we can play under this. We might not play under Gozen Match though because we have water and dark, so we have to pick one, but unfortunately it's not Gozen Match. But here just basically each player can only control one type of monster. So we have a warrior and we have an aqua. So we wanted to send a aqua to the graveyard. We could have fused. We probably would have only fused into a fiend because we have a fiend in our extra deck. So that's the play we probably would have done. So he resolves that, no problem. He summons out Heavenly Prison, which is fine, no problem. Popping the field spell, which is not really useful. And let's send the Havnis to the graveyard. Now we're going to trigger a fusion summon, hopefully to resolve, and he has Gravedigger's Trapple, which unfortunately negates the effect, and we take 2000 damage to the face. No problem. That's fine. Doesn't mean we stop there because now we just set 3 and we return Reinhardt back to the hand, which is flipping amazing. Like, it doesn't even go to the graveyard, it just sets, goes back to the hand. But not used, it goes back to the hand. So fortunately, that saved us. So let's see what the opponent does. He plays Customise. He summons Spright Blue, which has no effect, and Runick Fountain. So clearly, Runick Spright with a lot of Floodgates. Okay. Opponent, he didn't learn from the last time. Again, he's triggering the same effect as Adrian going to summon Reinhardt again, trigger the fusion summoning again. But now, we need to be a bit smarter because now we know what the opponent's doing. So we played Imperm specifically in the column where there can only be one is, because you know he has monsters on the field. So if we chain Impermanence first, we pop, we target Lord of Heavenly Prison, it's going to actually deactivate there can only be one, which means we can summon more than one. And then we can probably just spin everything back, go for gain or whatever. So that would have been the play. But now, let's see what happens. So then we chain Salia because we know we're going to summon Reinhardt, which will trigger a fusion. And he has actually another they can only be one. How lucky can you be? Which is fine, no problem, all good. So, chain Salia, chain Impermanence, so that negates the other one, but that one's still active. Pop Reinhardt, now, pop Reinhardt to the graveyard, but then, so here's the play, right? We're gonna summon Reinhardt, then we're gonna send a Tearlaments monster from there to the grave. We're gonna trigger Salia, we're gonna negate Spright Blue, right? And we do that so we can send an aqua to the graveyard so we can summon a fiend. So we're going to send Merly to the graveyard and we're going to trigger a fusion. So we got that Reinhardt in the hand, in the field, and we have 2 monsters in the grave. We're going to fuse those and we're going to summon Tearlaments Colliderheart. And Colliderheart on summon is going to spin a card onto the field into the deck. So we're going to spin back the Heavenly Prison and end his turn. So I think that was a good play there. Well, let me know what you guys think if that was a good play. Then we draw a Turtus, that's fine. Go for battle, into Spright Blue. Had no effect basically on field because it needs a level 2. So, and luckily we didn't have any Runick cards. So unfortunately he didn't draw any Runick cards. So let's just try and hope he gets one. No, he draws into Spright Jet, which is fine. Again, it will not activate it if nothing happens. He tries Customise again, hoping for a Runick card. And I think opponent plays Terraforming, adds another field spell, and I think he's done, yeah. I think he's done after that. Yeah, he had no further plays. If whatever he basically summons on board, he basically can follow up with Saliak again, send Colliderheart to the graveyard, will trigger itself, send the Tearlaments monster from deck to grave, and then fuse again into another aqua. So again, great synergy there. That's perfect. So let's get on to the next game. Alright, so we are hopefully gonna have a very good game here. Let's see what the opponent is playing. We're going second again, no problem. Okay, opponent playing Tearlaments, summoning the Scream, summoning the Reinhardt, and Reinhardt is going to send a girl to the graveyard for fusion, and Scream's going to mill 3. So, let's see what they resolve. So let's see all the effects that do pop. Okay, Sheeran is first chain, Havnis second chain, Merly third chain. Hold up, opponent. Wait a minute. You resolve the effect of Scream to mill 3, got the Shuffler, Kaldo, Therion, and Havnis. You also send Merly. Okay, fair enough. Now, this would have been the better play for the opponent. They, instead of activating all 3 effects in the chain, because Sheeran was first, Havnis second, Merly third. The downside of this is now, if you don't have any monsters in your hand to fuse with, all these resolves is going to be fusion summoning the monster over and over until there's no more resolution to fuse. So you would just take in the Reinhardt, probably go into Hikalos. Hikalos will probably go into Rukalos, and Rukalos will probably go into maybe Dragonmaid or something. Because if he doesn't have any other monster in hand, then that is kind of the flaw with training all your girls at the same time. The ideal play would have been to actually chain one of the girls, or most likely because Shirin was you chain Shirin chain link 1, that would have been the better play, and actually summon Kikalos. Kikalos can actually add another monster to hand. You probably would have been shuffling the Havnis and the Shirin to make the Kikalos. Kikalos can add the Havnis to hand, and then Kikalos can send itself to summon the Merly in the grave, and then trigger further milling again. So potentially more plays to extend, but the opponent decided not to. And let's see how this unfolds. And if I suspect right, this is what I think happened. So resolve the fusions, and here's the first fusion. So here's the first fusion into a Kikalos. Yeah. So Kikalos is going to be summoned, and then again return into the deck because again you're resolving all the fusions. Havnis, Rukalos again all these are useless. This is waste of resources. Literally, all of this was a waste. And now you see he's resolving all the fusions again into Dragonmaid, and I think opponents decided, no, okay, I'm done. You know, so that is how to not play tiers. Now, the nice thing about my deck is, if I have Aquas in hand, which I probably will have, in this case I didn't have, but if I did, at least I'll have some sort of option. But also I have to assess my graveyard and say, okay, cool. Before I trigger anything, assess my graveyard and check, okay, do I have anything? So opponent should have checked his graveyard before triggering all his girls in the graveyard, but now he didn't do that. So unfortunately, they didn't have the luxury of getting a nice combo going. So that's unfortunate to the opponent. But again, can you see, Tearlament is very rewarding if you are skillful. If you're not skillful, you can't just click yes to everything, because now sometimes not always the right play. Even same thing with milling, with your Agito's and your Calbex and so on. You cannot just say yes to everything, because what if your opponent's also playing the mirror match? So you don't know, and you never know what can happen. But anyway, that's just some high level tips there from playing the deck myself. So I kind of picked up that's quite important. But anyway, we get a nice very unfortunate victory because our opponent doesn't know how to play Tearlament properly. But hey, that's life, that's Yu-Gi-Oh, right? We live and we learn. But let's go on to the next game. Alrighty, so let's have a look at our hand here. So this one unfortunately isn't such a great opening hand, because we have 2 field spells, which means one's in the deck still, which is Pellerino. We don't have any Icejade though, so it's kind of useless to us. We also have a Polymerization, which again could be used. We also have a Tearlament Shirin, which we're going second, so it's not actually ideal, but it would have been good to obviously extend. And obviously we have Nail Shadal Area, which you shouldn't be really in your hand unless you have a King of the Swamp or a Beast King of the Swamp. Then you can go into a further play. But yeah, I don't know. This hand wasn't great, but it's fine. Let's see what the opponent can do. So the opponent is also playing Tearlament again, activating the Scream, normal summoning the Havnis. Wait a second, opponent. Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, let's do an analysis again. So you have Scream. Okay, cool. You had Havnis in hand. Okay, you summoned it. Probably not a good play here, because maybe your hand wasn't that good. So the best play would have actually been just to play Scream, set pass. Because now you see you mill Divine of the Herald, the King of the Swamp, the Foolish Burial. So I don't know. We don't know what's going on yet. So I think that it's kind of ridiculous that, you know, he summoned Havnis, because Havnis is kind of useless if you normal summon it. You have to give its value, because potentially they could have milled 6 on my turn, which would give me more interaction. But again, another opponent not using his deck properly and not learning and understanding the combo lines, because this is kind of important. Whenever you play a deck, you have to test it out. You cannot just pick it up, copy it from a site, and then go, because I know everyone's been seeing different variants, brandeds, Shadal Tearlaments. I've seen so many different versions. Everyone has to understand when you take up when you take a deck, you have to understand what the deck is and how it plays. Even if you want to do different variants, you have to understand what synergies and what strengths and weaknesses your deck has. So the reason why I built Icejade Tear is because I picked up, okay, these are the strengths and weaknesses of each deck, and I kind of combine them to utilize their strategies to their advantage. So I have to learn on the go by practicing. And this is what I'm saying. If you feel comfortable, you don't feel comfortable with the deck, I recommend you should actually go into ranked, go into casual man, practice there, have a few games, test out your deck to see, fine tune it, and then make sure you find what works for you. But now, in this case, you're wasting resources again. It's useless because now you're giving up because you know, okay, you're not going to have any further play, but potentially you could have had. But anyway, fair play to the opponent. Let's go on to more gameplay. So this gameplay, you'll see there's quite a few that I've put in this video. I think there's about 3 of them or so where I couldn't give my live reaction on the play-by-play, but basically I'll try and summarize it just to give you an overview. Basically, I was playing this game here was against Cyber Dragons. They didn't really do much. I thought they were going to have a crazy end board, but I think they just normal summon Cyber Dragon Core, added Cybernetic Overflow, which pops cards on the field up to number of Cyber Dragons you banish. So that wasn't really interesting there. So in our hand, we had a pretty interesting hand. We had Icejade and a Tearlaments. So let's start with the Icejade played first. Add Cosmic Core. Adrian going to add the field spell. We tried to play the field spell, but then the opponent ended up going to be popping the cards early, which is weird because that gives us basically clean slate for basically the full play. So we go Tearlament, Pellerino, we go into Cosmic Core because it's a free special summon, why not? Start with Sheeran, send the Caldo to grave. We didn't get anything unfortunately, so we just go powerful damage 2.3, and we pass on turn to the opponent, and the opponent summons a Regulus. So we're like, oh flip, okay, he's got an Omni Negate, alright, fine. So he knocks out Sheeran for 500, no problem. Now we try and bet out the negate because you don't want anything to be disrupted on next turn. So we try and bet it out, which we were successful in. And at this point, he had nothing on the field. So with Reinhardt in hand, basically we just draw for GD Crow, doesn't matter. We summon Reinhardt, we send Merly. Merly's gonna fuse with the graveyard, return the Sheeran with us to the grave, and we get Kid Kalos. And Kid Kalos is actually gonna send a card for fusion. We're gonna pop with the field spell, and it's a GG from here. So we ended up summoning a Collider using the Beast King of the Swamp, which as you see is an alternative. So we have max damage, so there's no doubt that we had any chance, and basically it was a GG from here. So let's go on to the next game. Alrighty, so this one here, guys, was quite interesting. So you can see I was kind of early play testing here, so the final deck list you'll see when I discuss it won't be, some cards won't be there, but I was just experimenting just to learn the deck a bit. So here we're playing against Floowandereeze. So why do I know this? Because they set back row, and they basically have Floodgates and Defissure, Macrocosmos. They love banishing, so I try to go for the conservative play, summon Cosmic Core on field, and hopefully reduce attack, and actually summon Egyptian God Slime, because of this give me some protection, indestructible by battle. So even if they have an end pen, it doesn't really matter. So we burn for damage, pass for turn, and he basically summons Stry, which tries to banish my Cosmic Core, which technically I have Havnis, and unfortunately he has a Macrocosmos, so now everything we get from the grave from Havnis gets banished, unfortunately. So, but that's not a train smash because he tries to summon the Riser. Pen is added and summoned. He gets Chain Block, of course. When you know Floowandereeze, we know how they are. Pretty intense. So in this game, I remember very clearly, I was thinking, okay, cool, got Macrocosmos, but I can still play on the Macrocosmos because if it was normal Tearlament, you would normally quit, right? So he tries to activate Pen's effect to destroy it, but remember, it's a continuous effect, God Slime, so it's indestructible by battle. And we pop the Solid, which is perfect. We have another field spell, so guess what? Cosmic Core's back on field, and guess what? Your field's going to be reduced. So now we can go for game. Well, he tries to summon with the Dreaming Town and tries to do something, but it's not going to matter because he knows we pretty much have game from here. So we're going to set the Saliak because he knows that we actually have no plays here. So he has the Riser. He tries to send back the Cosmic Core, but remember, God Slime is unaffected. So that was a GG from here. Alright, so this is the final game. Now you can see I'm showcasing a bit of instant fusion, why I understand why it's banned. Because basically you see my opening starting hand, start of screen, instant fusion literally with no effort, pay 1,000 life points, and we had Kid Kalos already on field, and then we just start up here. I haven't taken out a normal summon. So in this case we're going to be milling 3, and we got a Saliak in the grave, and we get a Havnis, and that's perfect because we can trigger our fusions, and also get to add a Tearlaments monster from deck to hand, and we're going to make a Kalos. very, very easy off the bat, no wasting time. And we still have our normal summon, by the way, but we're going to use Sharon's effect first to mill. We use Kalbeck to get an additional mill, and Merle's in the grave, and we're going to fuse with the Reinhardt in our hand. And we're going to summon a Tearlament Collider Heart, which is going to spin that back row into the deck. Oh, but he has a Super Poly, so he actually stuns us. But remember, Super Poly does nothing against Tearlament because it triggers the effects to come back. So even though he summons a Dragonmaid, it doesn't really matter because now Sharon's going to fuse and Runick is going to come back. So it really did nothing. So Super Poly, guys, do not use it against Tearlament because it's quite weak. So now we can just go into our normal plays, and we have to get Caleb back on field. And we also have Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. So he tries to negate Rukalos. Okay, that's fine. Not really mattered. And let's just add our field spell. And I believe we had Icejade in the grave. So we had Adrian, perfect. We had normal summon. Yeah, not normal summon yet. So we can chain block with that. And we're going to add a monster. So Cradle. Cradle's going to add any monster with a different name. So we have Cosmic Core. And we can summon it because we have the field spell. And now we pretty much go for battle. He tries to summon a Dragonmaid in defense position. And he has Dragonmaid changeover, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. And we just end clear his board. And you pretty much have a nice advantage here. So we have Meta Noise set down. So if anything he summons, we're going to basically set it down. We also have Scream. Okay, he summons a Raigeki. Raigeki's useless because everything gets triggered. Everything gets triggered. So if you send something by card effect, Raigeki is not the good card. The card you actually should be using is Dark Hole. So as you can see, Collider Heart sends Reinhardt to the grave. Tearlament's going to be milling. The Scream, the Sharon, it's perfect, right? So you can see, even with that Raigeki, can you see we still recovered our board basically. And he summons a Blaster. Tempest adds a Dragonmaid. Tries to summon, but I think he knows. I mean, we pretty much have too much advantage. Like it's just crazy, right? So that's it, you know. And I think that's all the games that I tried to record when I was trying to do the guide initially. You will see some other games hopefully later on, but I think that's sufficient for now. But you can kind of see how the power of Tearlaments is and how pretty much the deck can kind of function nicely. So I think that's wrapping it up for this video. I think it has been a bit long, but I do appreciate you guys sticking with me to this point. Remember, I did say earlier that I will do timestamps for any point in time in the video. So you're going to go to the deck list first and then come to the gameplay, or when I watch the gameplay first and then go back to the deck list, I will put timestamps so to make it easy for you guys to navigate, because I believe it will be a long video, which is longer than usual. But I do appreciate the support that you guys are giving the channel. And like I said, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you feel about Icejade Tearlaments. Do you like this type of variant? I think it's quite unique. And yeah, I think overall, I'm quite happy with the deck. I mean, it's still a learning curve for me because it's actually making me understand how Tearlament plays better. So even in the mirror matches that they do come up, I kind of have a little bit of an advantage because at least I know I'm not just having, you know, Tearlament only. I also have Icejade, which is also that defensive strategy, whereas Tearlaments is more of an offensive. So there's a bit of a balance. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about it. This is going to be the end of the video. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Thanks.